Recently, I have been thinking a lot about social justice activism, particularly for children who are facing food insecurity. Before I get into the conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and comment to keep the conversation going. If you're new to this podcast, this is On Modern, where I provide a reflection on my mothering journey as a mother to a newborn baby. Now, this is an audio podcast, and I've been resisting my partner's suggestion to have a video podcast because the introvert in me wants to wait until I'm more rested to have another video recording that I do. Talking about social justice issues is not new to me, as I normally do this in my consulting work and in my full-time job. However, after hearing my baby wail whenever he's hungry, I realize that there's much more that I can do to be more actively involved in this work. Hearing my baby cry for food made me think of the millions of people who are suffering from food insecurity or even worse, famine. I'm now wondering how I can advance this cause besides my minimal contributions to nonprofit organizations and my community work. Hence, lately, I've been posting more about the war in Gaza and the need for greater accountability from the Israeli government to ensure that Palestinians have access to food. More importantly, that the Israeli government is held accountable for this ruthless war on the Palestinians. Now, I want to make a distinction between the Israeli government, the Israeli people, as well as even the religion, Judaism. I'm not talking about the people in Israel. I'm not talking about the religion. I'm talking about the current government and the systems, the lack of accountability from particularly Western governments to hold them accountable, where they can ruthlessly starve hundreds of thousands of people and have hundreds of thousands of people face food insecurity. I'm making this separation for clarity, not because I want to be politically correct, but because I don't want my calls for greater social justice and food security for people in Gaza to be diluted by calls of anti-Semitism. But I know they'll come. Let me continue. My heart wrenches with pain when I hear of the shortage of infant formula and how this is leading to hundreds of babies being underweight and even dying. So when we think of even UNICEF's report that since this year, in 2025, more than 112 babies have been admitted daily in Gaza due to hunger. And I think of my own child and how devastated I would feel if I had to watch my child suffer and wither away due to starvation. And we also hear of news reports of Palestinians being shot at while they're waiting in lines to get food. How barbaric this is. Can you imagine you're using your last energy to get food and people are shooting at you? You don't even know if when you leave where you're now staying, right? Because these people have lost their house, they've lost their security in terms of housing. If when you leave your family to get food, that you come back to them. This is how barbaric. I'm using this podcast to highlight the need, and I'm joining the chorus of people who have been calling for greater food security, more human rights, more humanity, more humane treatments for Palestinians, particularly for children. I'm doing this now because last week my child had a cold and he was unable to feed as much as he normally would. And this worried me. So on the second day of the cold, I took him to the doctor. The doctor gave him some medicine. And then a day after taking the medicine, he felt better. And I started seeing him perking up back. And I started thinking to myself, can you imagine as a parent, as a mother, seeing your child wither away due to starvation? And how helpless you might feel seeing your child and knowing that there's very little that you can do. And when you take the risk to try to get food supplies, there is no guarantee that you'll make it back home, as I mentioned before. And this is why we need to add to the voices of advocates calling for the end of genocide in Gaza and other famines around the world. But we don't have to look very far to find social justice causes to support. I think of even access to buildings and better sidewalks in our communities. So as an able-bodied person, normally I wouldn't think about access to building or the state of sidewalks unless there's a giant pothole or an area that needs fixing. But as someone pushing a stroller with my child, and me being extra, I decided to get a big fancy stroller with a big removable cot, which does not really grow with the child. So the cot is there and it provides good cushioning for my child. But it's one of those that's really big and makes your stroller look even extra big, which makes it difficult for you to go in and out of buildings. But I mean, that's a problem I decided that I wanted to have. But it makes me think about wheelchair users, right? Having this issue makes me think about wheelchair users and how difficult it might be for them to enter or to leave buildings, especially buildings that don't have buttons that you can push to open the door, or automatic buttons, or stores that don't have ramps. I recall having to prop up my child's stroller on the back wheels to get into buildings or to get on the sidewalk. So think about, lack of sidewalk accessibilities for wheelchair users or for people who have mobility issues. I also think about food insecurity locally. We know that the last 3 years, there has been increase in food insecurities. Food banks are constantly asking for donation because of the growing needs for the use of their services. And the truth is that our governments need to do more to provide funding for programs that limit food insecurities. So in light of food insecurity, perhaps you can donate to a food bank or a food pantry, to ensure that more people have access to food. Or even if you can't donate in terms of kind, you can think about your service. So providing child minding for people, if people trust you with their children, providing child minding for children who are doing advocacy work. You can think about signing a petition for better food security, signing a petition to end the war in Gaza and other places where they're facing war. So the point is, there are numerous causes that we can support, and the time to act is now. And I'm realizing as a parent, as a mother, that there's a lot more that I need to do to ensure that there's greater social justice in the world. Thank you very much for listening. And that is all for now. See you on the next episode.